We're live, and this is the second episode of Live with Coach RT3 here on Facebook. Doing this every week. I just want to give you guys some insight into some of the people who are in the unconventional world, and some of the people who have influenced and created these tools. Jake is the creator of the Macebell, and he is also operates Scientific Wrestling. He's out in Colorado. I'm looking at your torso.
I tried to fix that. Hold on.
Man, it looks like a nice day out there.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I can't believe it's January right now. All right, here we go. All right, in all my glory. Here we go.
How you doing, man?
You see it all right?
Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks for being patient while I figure all this out.
No, it's the technology age is pretty crazy. I'm just kind of figuring this all out myself.
It's cool, and I can't believe, like, I don't know. Yeah, I was born in the early 70s, so it's like the technology that my kids have access to is like nuts
Yeah.
compared to what we probably had, growing up.
Yeah, I was born in 77, so
Yes.
looking at what we had then versus what we have now, it's like I could have never imagined being able to have a conversation with someone, in a different state, in a different country, face to face.
It's like real time.
Yeah. So it's pretty.
I mean, it's like this was like Star Trek, blowing technology. Now it's like my 10-year-old daughter's like having virtual sleepovers with her friends and stuff.
Right. It's crazy. So yeah, I'm really glad that you could come on. I was just kind of giving a little bit of background, just kind of said, you were the creator of the Macebell, told them about your website, Scientific Wrestling. But I've really been kind of having these interviews with people because it's really selfish reasons. Like I would really like to know more from people who came before me, especially with the tools that I use, as well as like the systems and training. So, I'm a constant learner, and I consider myself like the consummate white belt. But I also just want other people to have an opportunity to learn and grow and kind of dig deeper and get down to the root of things and just learn. And I think you can't go forward without knowing where you're coming from, So I'm really happy to have an opportunity to talk to you. I think my first message to you, I had heard a podcast. I don't remember exactly which podcast it was, but you were being interviewed about the Macebell, and I kind of was listening. And then I also read, I think in Rick Brown's manual that he gives out, he kind of mentions you there and kind of gives you, tip of the cap for teaching him about the Macebell. And so it's just getting back to the influencers and finding out, more is I think important. So without further ado, just can you tell us a little bit about, how you got involved with the Mace or Gata, and then how it kind of became the Macebell? And
Yeah, it's funny, and I think we're kind of kindred spirits because that's the attitude that you were describing that you have as kind of a perpetual white belt. That's kind of the approach that I have, and that's what led to the Mace. Really, I've always been involved with wrestling in some capacity, whether it's grappling or professional wrestling or folk style, freestyle wrestling. I've always just had some level of involvement. It's just something I've always liked. And so I went on a similar journey as you, but was mostly in the wrestling arena, and befriended some pretty amazing people in my quest for knowledge and understanding. And one of those guys was this like legendary wrestling icon in Japan. He's known as the god of wrestling, Karl Gotch. And I was just really, really lucky. I have a pretty good research background. I have my master's degree in financial math, so
Hmm.
I'm pretty strong on the nerd side, and so I was able to track him down, and I just think it was because I was able to research it. And he didn't want to be found. He didn't really publicize himself. He was he was not into people in
Right.
general, you know. And but I ended up finding him and wrote him a letter, and just detailed some of the things that I was interested in knowing and some of the things that I wanted to do, which people could see here 20 years later as the fruition of scientific wrestling and the Macebell and these things. And I just was real lucky. Karl, he has this like enormous reputation for being real curmudgeonly and real crotchety and not friendly, but he never was that way with me. I just like won the lottery on that, and we became friends. And I talked to him for probably, I think it was probably the last 4 years. I think it was 2004 was the first time we actually moved from like letters to just talking on the phone all the time.
Hmm.
And eventually that culminated. Now, so for those people who don't know who Karl Gotch is, he was a Belgian freestyle and Greco-Roman champion that went to the Olympics. I think he placed like 10th or something. This had to be in the oh man, I want to say 42 Olympics, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, while he was there, he was kind of scouted and seen by some of the guys at Billy Riley's gym, a famous catch wrestling gym up in the north of England in Wigan, and they brought him back there. He studied there for 12 years, and then traveled around a bit, making money. Came to the States, learned from some American catch wrestlers, Frank Wolf and a few others, and anyway, along the way, you know, Karl traveled the world, and he was very self-effacing, and he'd call himself just a boy from the waterfront, and that he was just this poor kid and stuff, and he was, but he was, just because you can't afford an education doesn't mean you're not smart, and he was really smart,
Right.
and he was obsessed with physical culture, and so he just brought in everything he could, mostly with wrestling, but in the course of that, he came across it's called Vyayam, or the Hindu exercises. So we see these like Hindu squats, Hindu push-ups, the
Hmm.
Dans and the Bathaks. And this is all from a tradition of Hindu wrestling. And Karl picked it up. He was a conditioning freak. And one of the things that he picked up was the gada, or the mace.
Hmm.
This is another just training implement that he picked up. Well, fast forward to about 2006, I had been doing these exercises for a while, just because I had known of Karl because of his influence in wrestling, and I'd been doing all these exercises. I went out to go see him. Now, Karl's famous that he wouldn't show you anything unless you could do his exercise regimen, which was either doing 500 squats, 250 push-ups, holding a 3-minute bridge,
Oh my God.
or doing what he called the Gotch Bible, which is where you take a deck of cards, and you have 4 suits and all 10 different 10 or 11 different face cards or whatever
Hmm.
for each suit. Well, each like black cards would be squats, red cards would be push-ups, right?
Right.
So if you pulled a 10 of clubs, you would double that number and you would do 20 squats. So the rule is that there's actually you do double the legs that you do for the upper body
Hmm.
in this Gotch complex, this crazy Gotch's Bible deck of cards thing. So anyway, I finally Christmas time I had family out in Bradenton, Florida, which wasn't that far from Orlando, where he had retired, and so I said, "Hey man, I'm gonna be out there. Can I see you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, come on, come on." So I was excited. I mean, for me, I'm like a nerd. I'm like marking out. I am so like, oh my, this is unreal. I'm gonna go meet this guy after all these years of picking his brain, and like, he's such an epic level guy. Like, he's the guy who cornered Antonio Inoki against Muhammad Ali. I mean, this is like a mover and shaker, the guy who influenced the founders of Pancrase. Like this guy is like epic, right? And I'm gonna meet him, so I go, and I'm ready. But you know, because I've been doing the exercises, and I'm like pumped up. I'm really excited, and so I knock on the door, and you know, he opens the door. He's like, "Oh, welcome, Jacob. Come on in," and we sit down, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you got to have a cigar with me." And I don't smoke cigars. I mean, I have, but it's not like, you know, I'm inoculated to it. I don't
Right.
have that hormesis, that buildup where I can do it
Right.
and not turn green. It grosses me out. But I'm like, this is Karl Gotch. I'm not going to not have a cigar with freaking Karl Gotch. That would be retarded. Like, I have to do this.
Right.
Now, mind you, I woke up at like the butt crack of dawn to drive from Bradenton, you know, over some of those crazy epic bridges they have down in Florida to go meet him up in Orlando. I skipped breakfast, okay?
Right.
And it's about 10 a.m. when I get there and knock on the door. He calls me in. He's like, yeah, okay, let's have a cigar. We go out on his porch. He's like, let me pour you some, it's called plum wine. And it's this really sweet, it's too sweet. Like, it's like gross. It's so sweet, it's gross. But it's like an intense wine from
Right.
Japan. And it was like his favorite. So I'm sitting there on an empty stomach at 10 a.m. smoking like a giant cigar and like this sweet, sweet plum wine. And we're talking and it's great. I'm having a good time. And then, you know, I'm a little buzzed. I'm kind of sick to my stomach. I haven't eaten anything, which actually I think probably turned out good because that's what prevented me from puking. But he's like, okay, so let's work out now. And I'm like, oh, shit. I thought I was going to get away with it. Thought I was not going to have to do this. So he busts out the cards. And I got through, I think there was like 2 cards left and I couldn't go. And I was like, Karl, man, I didn't eat and I can't do it with the cigar. And he cut me a break. I made it all the way to like, there was like 2 or 3 cards left. So I think he cut me some slack. And at that point, he pulls me in and he shows me his meals, which are the big, you know, like Iron Sheik looking clubs, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. So he's like, oh, pick one up. I'm like, holy shit. Because he had each meal was 10 kilograms, right? And I couldn't even fucking, like, I could barely even just hold them. This is my first time I've ever had any exposure to anything like this.
Right.
Then he's like, oh, here, try my Gata. And, you know, there's a video that he gave me that I put on YouTube and stuff of him swinging it. And it's wood. So a 10, you know, steel is denser than wood. So it's like this giant ball. It's still 10 kilos. Long story short, I can't do it. And I'm like deathly afraid. I do not want to break Karl's Macebell. That would be like the worst thing. I don't want to be that guy, right? So I'm like trying my hardest to like do it, but I don't want to break his thing. Oh man, it was a disaster. Anyway, he gave me some tips, showed me a bunch of stuff, and it was really great. And so then I had the bug, right? I'm like, okay, I need to understand this. I want to develop this. I had already around that time I'd done a kettlebell certification with Valery Fedorenko, his organization, and I was already into all this odd object lifting, and you know I was coaching people and stuff at the time.
Right.
And I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? Well, at that time, this is 2005 when 2006 is kind of, I'm already kind of thinking about it, but when I met Karl and he showed me his God, I was like, because I had tried to go get them made out of wood, to be honest, at first. I was like, okay, I'm just going to get this for myself. And I tried woodworkers, and they were like, oh, it'll be $350, $400. I was like, are you kidding me? Shit, dude. I mean, back then I didn't have that kind of money. I was like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
So I just put on my resourceful hat, and I was like, well, shit. Okay, I got to figure this out. How am I going to get one for myself?
Right.
But I don't want to do it. I don't want to spend that much money. And to be honest with you, spending $400 on a wooden one, I'm going to break it. I just know I'm going to break it.
Right.
I'm trying to figure it out. So long story short, at that time, a guy, I don't know how many people, I'm so clueless. I don't really stay plugged into all the message boards and what people talk about. But Scott Sonnen had just come out with his club bells
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And I was like, oh shit, dude, this is like cool. This is like the meals, but where's the gata?
Right.
And there's no plans and nobody had anything. I was like, are you kidding me? So I got all the dimensions from Karl, the length, which I think is probably the most important factor that sadly a lot of the manufacturers I think miss out on. They make
Right.
too short maces. That's beside the point. But I get all the measurements. I contact the people who are manufacturing Sonnen's club bells
Mm-hmm.
and pitch them on the idea. Torque Athletic, and Otis over there. He's a great guy. He was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this. And the rest, as they say, is history. So this was, I think I put out the my handbook of Indian club swinging, which was just reprints of some of the old the old book instructional manuals from the 20th century. I put that out in 2005, and I think the Mace was 2006, and then 2007 I put out the Macebell strength training DVD, which was basically me taking what I learned from Karl and trying to translate it to make it easy for people to swing these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I have one talent, I think I'm a good translator of concepts from
Mm-hmm.
one person's brain to another. And so I kind of created all these protocols and named, like 360s and 10 to 2. That was just me like, fuck, I just got to come up with a name for this shit.
Right.
There's nothing fancy. And now it's like kind of become the nomenclature, which is crazy. And so
That's pretty crazy.
what's particularly weird is that, you mentioned Rick, who's a great guy, and he's done like yeoman's work popularizing the Macebell
Yeah.
and mace training. He's just an amazing guy anyway. So one day, this was back, I was living in California. I was in a town called Dana Point,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just out in my front yard swinging my mace because I was in an apartment. I could, you'll destroy your apartment if you do it inside.
Right.
So I'm outside, and this dude drives by, and it looks like a lowrider, man. I'm like, what? And it's this giant white dude, and this little like Honda Accord lowrider. I'm like, this is really weird. He like pulls over. I'm like, is this guy gonna fight me? What is this dude? I don't know. What the hell is this? And he's like, hey, what is that you're swinging? I'm like, it's Macebell. And he was just so fascinated. He's like, no, come here, look. And he opens up his trunk. His car's not a lowrider. He's got like 50 kettlebells like in the trunk weighing his car down. So I start talking to him, and it ends up being Rick, right? And he like lives just down the street, so it's really cosmic. Like, I mean, he'd already gotten his kettlebell thing from Pavel and all that. And
right.
So he was in deep already, and when he saw me, he was like, "Oh my God!" Now I had a gym just a couple miles up the road in a small town called San Juan Capistrano. So I was real fortunate. It was good timing because I had that gym and I was able to test it with my clients basically. So
Mm-hmm.
again, we're talking 2007. And so I had a pretty good repertoire. And sadly I see a lot of people now like, so Rick was huge. I mean, because he took it and ran with it, right? But that's
Right.
where we filmed the instructional DVD,
Mm-hmm.
Macebell Strength Training Basics. And then after that, to be honest with you, I kind of got really focused because I ended up befriending another legendary guy after Karl's passing. His name's Billy Robinson. And I ended up just kind of devoting myself to him, like almost like a guru chela, kind of relationship. And I didn't do much with the Macebell. I mean, I still was doing it for myself and whatever, but I wasn't promoting it. I had done some early certifications. I did them for free. It was basically you had to do 100 swings and some other doodads, but you could do them on YouTube. And that was actually quite a successful, it was a viral campaign, and I didn't even know. I was just
Right.
like lucky, because I did it free and everybody's on YouTube. All of a sudden, there's all these Macebell videos, and that really helped I think, get it going. But I think where it took off was the efforts of Rick, and then when all the people over at On It jumped on it, on the bandwagon, that just blew shit up like really big.
Right.
It had already kind of, I think Rick had been instrumental in inspiring people to take kind of the kettlebell approach with like Macebell Sport and actually making a competition of it, which I think is great. But the On It people, obviously because there's such a big brand or whatever, when they jumped on, it really went crazy. So now here I am, I think it's 11 years later or whatever, 12 years later or something, and it's crazy huge.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll stop.
No, that was really good. I mean, that was really good background. I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot from that. I mean, the idea of 10 to 2 and 360 in my head, I'm like, where does that come from? That had to have come from somewhere, right? But I know clearly in India they're not saying 10 to 2 360, right? So
they call them hops, or
right.
hands is one rotation.
Right.
One hand would be a one rotation. So
yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense, and I think a lot of people get a fair bit from that. How do you? So I'm assuming you also use the mace, since Karl Gotch was a wrestler. I'm assuming you use it in your training of wrestlers, or do you use it with your training of wrestlers?
I do. I haven't as much as I probably should have, but I've kind of. So I used to have like a gym and a club and all that kind of stuff. Like I had my guys, and I did that for years, like for a long time. I started in Venice, California. I had a club there. We were at Redwood's boxing gym for a couple years, then the Santa Monica High School, and then I opened my own gym. And I did that for a long time, and I did that. Yeah, I think it's an incredible, for me personally. I know people just swing the mace, but for me, like it's got a purpose, and the purpose of swinging the mace is that it is like, it gives me a really killer grip. It really strengthens and loosens up my shoulders, which are very vulnerable to top wrist locks and other kind of submission, double wrist locks, things of that nature. So for me, it's very practical. That's my whole reason.
Yep.
And to be honest, it's probably why I haven't promoted it as a thing in itself as much, because I mean, I'm just obsessed with wrestling, and it's just, there's only so much time in the day, and I've spent most of my time promoting the wrestling business that I have. But I think the mace, if you're somebody who's in any kind of grip strength related activity, the mace is like, I mean, killer. And this speaks to my point that I mentioned briefly earlier, that I think, this is one of the things, and the manufacturers, they can just add a couple inches onto their handles. I'm just saying, like, it's the length that gives it the centrifugal force that creates that you have to hold on to. That's what it is, And it's been really interesting because I'm hands off. I'm kind of like, I just like to see what people do with it. And it's cool. And there's these people swinging these like monster, like 50-pound maces and shit. I'm like, God, you guys are insane. And I appreciate it. I think that's so cool. I can't do it.
Right.
But, or these other people doing these like flowing dance moves and stuff with it. I'm like, that ain't going to happen with me, but that is awesome. I love to see all the different ways people are kind of using it. I tried to open people's minds a little bit, but I think it might still be too early because I don't see anybody using it for Scottish hammer toss, which was one of the reasons why I made it out of steel. Was that, in the Highland games, one of the games is the Scottish hammer, and it's exactly the Macebell, and it's the same weight. It's 10 kilos of the standard mace.
Okay.
So I find it interesting. Actually, what I'm working on now is kind of codifying a system. I see all these people doing these kind of flow exercises, and it's great. I'm actually a registered yoga instructor, or whatever. I do not teach. I don't like to do that, but I'm like a yoga nerd, and there is a lot of kinship.
Yes.
The Hindus are badass, dude. Like, they have so many cool things that we do, and they're totally different, but they all come from like the Hindus. Like, so my wife in the last couple of years has got really into pole fitness, which is like these stripper poles. But I mean, it's like gymnastic. These chicks,
Right.
if you go on YouTube and watch it, it's insane. But guess what? All of that goes back to India.
Mm-hmm.
The Malakamba or whatever it's called. The poles were, and it was a wrestling exercise.
Hmm.
So a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of like yoga that we practice in the West today, the yoga practiced over there is like meditation
Right.
mostly.
Yeah.
It's not the physical stuff.
Right.
The yoga that's come over here is a hybrid of that. I mean, there are the asanas, but
Plus
that's
our
like
culture,
a small
right?
fraction of your typical yoga, right? It's we integrated it with Hindu wrestling exercises, British, like turn of the century British, I don't know what to call it, like military, fitness exercises, and actual asana from India.
Right.
But this vyayam, which is the Hindu wrestler workout, which is where you get donned, which is the Hindu push-up,
Mm-hmm.
but upward facing dog is donned asana.
Right.
Dandasana is a donned. It's just everybody like they're like, okay, you wrestlers are too way intense and crazy. I'm not going to do 250 upward downward facing dog
Right.
fuckers. So I'm gonna do one. And I'm gonna break it into two pieces.
Right.
And I'm gonna call that yoga. But it's all the same shit. It's really it's a fascinating culture.
Yeah.
If you're into physical culture.
I mean, I think it's amazing. And I like the fact you said there's a kinship between the mace and yoga, because I've always felt that kinship. I mean, I practice yoga to some degree. I mean, I don't consider myself, that knowledgeable. My wife's a yoga instructor. And
Oh, cool.
I mean, when I picked up the mace and started swinging it, and it wasn't particularly until I got a longer mace. So when you said longer mace, I'm like, it makes much more sense. I had a mace made by Melody down in Southern California, Melody Schoenfield, and she the mace for me was a bit longer. I remember Rick saying, you should try a longer mace, and once I got that longer mace in my hand, I mean, life just changed dramatically. I mean, the feeling
it's
you
easier
get.
to swing a longer mace. It's easier.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are like looking all awkward and goofy because there's not enough weight to pull it back.
Yeah. It's
length,
and it's the time as well. I always say, like, when you swing a longer mace, you have more time for the breath and to breathe and it feels more like you can get into this rhythm and this almost a state of trance, like a state of meditation. That's what I feel like when I swing my longer mace. When I swing my shorter maces, I feel like I'm more attached to the physical. Like, I got to get this mace over. I got to pull this thing over. I got to pull this thing over. And so it definitely has two different feels if you swing, longer versus shorter. And I definitely, for swinging, I enjoy having a longer mace in general.
I mean, it's just you get more. It pulls your arms back more because there's more centrifugal force. You're right. The timing is much like it just takes its time. You know what I mean? And comes up. You feel yourself cutting through space.
Yeah.
It's like and so if you ever get into like a good yoga class and you have this vinyasa and you're flowing and it's good and your breath is timed to your movement and you're moving and you feel strong, but you're still in your body because you're moving it and you feel the muscles and the tensions and the breath working with the movement. That's exactly how it should be in my mind. But I got weird ideas about how the world works and a lot of it is attached to yoga. I mean, I'm like a total yoga nerd now. But it's funny because when you mention it, I do feel that you should be going into a trance. And I see like these people. The only thing that I would like to see more of is people going for time. I see.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see more people saying, "Okay, I'm going to sit here with a 10 kilo for 20 minutes and don't stop, just for 15, 20 minutes, or set a timer and see how long you can go. And then the next day, set that same timer to see how long you can go. And if you can beat that time, and build up like the endurance on like a 10 kilo. I mean, everybody's got their own training protocols, and I'm, I'm agnostic about it. Do what you're going to do and have fun with it. But I wish people would do it and get more into that flow. It's real funny because I think people, there's only so many ways to do something, right? Like there are limits on, in this plane of existence, there are kind of rules to the video game. There is a certain, physics, in the operating system that we have to adhere to. And I think when you have people who do maybe yoga and then they start swinging the mace and maybe they have a little bit of wrestling experience or martial arts experience, I think you start kind of feeling similar experiences.
Yeah.
Somebody that I've really enjoyed on social media, I haven't met in person yet, but I mean, for the last year or so, we've been talking a lot, and I've really enjoyed his approach because I think it's very close to a lot of the things that I'm doing personally. Is Calvani out in Illinois. He does a lot of kind of the stuff that I'm into, which is like kind of magic oriented, really, going into trance and using it as kind of a ritual space as well. And, it's just a win-win that it happens to be a physical endeavor and you get in good shape too,
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've followed his work for some time as well. Yeah, no, I mean, I used to, so when I first kind of got my longer mace, I used to set a timer. I'd set it for 1 minute. Okay, can I go for 1 minute? And then take a minute off, 1 minute, minute off. And then I said, you know what, 90 seconds, 90 seconds, minute off, 90 seconds, minute off. Okay, 2 minutes. So it was like I think I went over the course of about 6 weeks. I was trying to build up to getting a nice long 20-minute workout, still with rests and whatnot in between, but just trying to build up that way. And I think that was a really great way of kind of refining my swing as well, because you swing that many times and you start to learn things about yourself, what feels right, what's not feeling right, how it feels going with the right hand on top going over the right side versus the left side, or left hand on top going, people always ask me these questions as well on social media, like which hand should be on top. I'm like, well, you should be able to swing however, you need, because what if you want to swing it single arm? I mean, you're not going to have a top hand or a bottom hand. It's just going to be a hand there.
That's right.
So, I think there's definitely some benefit to repetition, and really getting into it. And like you said, I mean, I think like this day and age, I think people are like, that's why yoga, I think, was kind of catered to like Western American sort of mind state, because I think in the repetitive way, in the same over and over and over way, I think we've kind of been wired to be quote unquote bored. Like, oh, I'm bored. I need something to change. I need it to be, new and exciting every minute, of the workout. So it's unfortunate.
Well, what's interesting about that is that, this is regardless if you're into like kind of the stranger things that like I'm into sort of more the esoteric and magic or whatever sides of it. That even aside, if you're just even into like entrepreneurship or goal setting and goal getting, even on a physical or financial or personal or relationship basis, whatever, if you're into achieving things and making things actually happen, it takes willpower.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a concept I don't think people really, I think that's just kind of, like swept under the rug, this idea of willpower, of focus, of sustained long focus.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why nobody talks about it, and maybe it has to do with the culture we live in. That's this culture of distraction, where nobody can get anything done because there's a bing on their phone or a bing on this other screen, or everybody's pulled a million different directions and they can't focus. The thing that I like about disciplines like yoga, or what I'm calling now Mace Yoga,
Mm-hmm.
is this program that I'm developing, which is basically the ayam of Karl Gotch, but I'm adding to it, making it a little bit more yoga-like,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of having an entire vinyasa.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is, and this is yoga or mace work or anything, is it demands your attention.
Yeah.
So, for those who maybe done a yoga class that are watching but have never swung a mace, you go in, you get on your mat, you don't have your cell phone, you don't have anything. You have a mat and yourself.
Right.
And you have to come to terms with what you discover in the next hour about yourself and your weaknesses and your strengths. And you have nothing but that time to focus on your intention, your mind. You're practicing it. And what I like is that I think of mace yoga and using the Macebell a lot like a moving meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of people that have more of a kind of either kettlebell approach where they're just going for reps, or
Right.
some sort of glory of, something, or the bodybuilding approach or a powerlifting approach where they have to have these heavy ones. Everybody's got their own thing. But for me, I really appreciate it as kind of a form of moving meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can identify and agree with that for sure.
The other guy that I've been amazed with, and I've only stumbled on him recently. I can't believe it, is this Marcus. I'm not sure how you say his last name, Cuijas, but he has this book, Hanuman Power, and I freaking love it. It's awesome. I didn't write it. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I've never met the guy, but the book is great. I mean, there's some editing issues and typos or whatever, but the content is awesome. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you can get on Kindle, it's Hanuman Power. It's a really great book.
I think I've seen. I thought he had. Doesn't he have Quiet Power too, or something like that? I know I've seen. I know.
I have no idea. I just read that book and I'm like, holy shit, this is really great, because really he was able to go to India,
Mm-hmm.
and to the Akaras down there. I think he was in the south of India,
Mm-hmm.
where Hanuman, who is the monkey god who carries a mace, he's an incarnation of Shiva,
Mm-hmm.
who is the Adi Yogi, the first yogi. So there's some interesting cultural parallels there too.
Right.
But he was able to go down to the Akara, and he really detailed some of the workouts and the things like. It's really fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, that's on my list of things to do in life is get over to India. I mean, it's sad because I lived in Bangkok for 5.5 years and I was so close, and yet so far. So.
Oh wow! Oh, that's cool though. That's legit for 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years, man. It was life-changing, a life-changing experience, and it's definitely learned a lot, grew a lot, and coming back here to the States, I kind of just had a different perspective on a lot of things, in life. I mean, I feel like, to me, I feel like a world citizen now. So I mean, I lived there and I lived in Korea for a year as well. So, I mean,
oh wow,
I feel like the world is there for us to explore, and there's so much out there to learn and grow from. And India is definitely.
I'll tell you what, man. All these poor kids these kids that are in debt up to their eyeballs for student loans and stuff, they should have just traveled the world, man. In my opinion, because you'll learn a hell of a lot more than you would out of some book or some stodgy professor somewhere. Travel is like epic, man. It's spiritual. It changes you fundamentally.
Yeah, it does.
Speaking of,
there's a question.
I see Gulam. Yeah, hey, what's up, Gulam? Good to see you, man.
There's a question here from there's a question here from Leon. It says, does your mace video cover yoga mace work you're talking about, or is this newer?
Oh yeah, so okay, product plug time. If you go to on Instagram, this is complicated, but this is how the world works, I guess. Go to Instagram, Mace Yoga 1, the number 1. So Mace Yoga 1. I tried to get Mace Yoga, but I think it's some girl named Macy or something, and it has nothing to do with Macy's. So Mace Yoga 1, and then like in the link in bio or whatever, you click that. That's the video that I shot in 2007. That kind of laid the kind of the foundation where I think a lot of people built on, you know, and it's great. It's got Rick in it, who, by the way, Rick Brown, you got to go. He's now got an online certification too, and that guy, I mean, that guy knows what he's talking about. I love Rick, man. He's amazing.
Yeah, I got.
But yeah, so that's old. It's older material, but I honestly like. I could get you. I know a lot of people have a hard time to get the mace in the mail, and then they're like, "What the hell am I going to do with this now?" Because they don't know how to fucking get it moving, right? I've got like a method, and I think most people kind of had adopted my method of just swinging it and getting going that way, and then pulling it over. But that video, it's on Vimeo, so you can rent it for like $2 or something now. I mean, I don't know, the world's crazy. It's so cool.
It is cool.
Do all that. But I'm going to be putting out. I'm hoping in 2018. I'm still kind of figuring out the logistics and whatnot of getting a. I've got a bunch of projects actually that are mace related. So okay, here's this part.
Go ahead.
Like,
go ahead.
So I don't have a video that's new. I have an old one. That's my answer to Leon. So I'm sorry, but I'm hoping to have something out this year that will be Mace Yoga. And if I can do it, I'm going to try to do it for free and just put like an hour-long video up on the web, and then people can pick it apart, rip it off, do whatever the hell. I don't care. I'm just going to put it up.
Nice.
Or not use it. I don't care. You can ignore it, whatever. That's the other thing. But this year, so I did part ways with Torque last year.
Okay.
And I love them. I have nothing but good things to say. We had, I think, some problems with some customer service issues that just were not getting resolved, and so I just kind of decided to shut it down. So there's no more actual. Well, maybe Torque's still making them. I have no idea. If they are, it's a great product. I think it's great. You can go to Torque and find them there. I don't know, to be honest. So you'd have to talk to them about it. But I am really excited because I'm coming out with Macebell 2.0. This is a product that I've had in my head for about 5 or 6 years, and I just could never really get it off the ground at Torque. But I partnered with Ryan Pitts of Stronger Grip.
Oh yeah.
And he's actually in the process of whipping up this prototype. I think it's going to be pretty cool. I haven't seen anything really like it.
Don't tell him too much.
I've seen people like, everybody got on this like loadable weight thing, like, is it Evil Monkey, right?
Yeah.
With the globes. And I know Ryan had the globes that were empty and you could fill them.
Yeah.
And then Addicts now has, the plate loadable.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing what I'm going to do. And I'm sure after I do it, everybody will do it, and it's out there. Here's the other thing.
Made one. Kettlebell Kings made one recently that you put like little plates inside. So it's a little globe that sits. It's flat on the bottom, so it's kind of built. And I think you can load it up to 50 pounds with these screw-in plates. So that's pretty interesting. I want one, but I don't think my wife's going to be okay with me having another mace because I've got a ton of them in the garage. But I do I have the globe. I have the globe as well, the water fillable globe. And I appreciate that one because I like to travel with it. And so since I always go back to Asia, I just put that globe in my suitcase and I'm off.
I mean, there's clever designs out there now. I mean, some of the stuff that these people are putting out is amazing. And that's why I'm really excited to put out this Macebell 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm excited about my own product to people to be like, oh, you're so cool, this is great, or whatever. But what I'm excited is like 5 or 10 years from now when people have seeing this like vision I have, but they're better at engineering or they're better at like some of the
Mm,
doodads and to see what the improvements will be.
right.
It's going to be really cool. So I
Looking
got a new
forward to it.
video that's going to be the Mace Yoga video that's coming out. I've got Macebell 2.0 from Stronger Grip coming out. Um, what else? I have a bunch of wrestling stuff that I'm going to be doing this year that's pretty exciting, but again, I'm keeping it a little bit under wraps. Um, oh, what else? I know there's one other thing and it'll come to me, but I can't think of it right now.
All right. Well, cool. I'll be sure to if you send me over those links, I'll be sure to put all the links down below because I'm gonna also transfer this video to YouTube, so everybody on YouTube can have a look at it as well, and then I'll throw the links in there, and people can check out the links to any of the stuff you mentioned as well, and as well as your
Oh,
social media.
the other thing that I remember now. The other thing that I was going to do. So, one of the one of the things that yeah, I'm just like at this point, I just want people to start swinging. You know what I mean? I originally started the Macebell because I wasn't going to spend $400 on a wooden one that I knew was going to break. And I lucked out through this situation with Torque and had them make this thing for me. And, I knew that if I wanted it, there's going to be other people. That's why I named it the Macebell, kind of to capitalize on the kettlebell market, because at
Right.
that time kettlebells were so high. Um, so I'm just, I mean, I'm not a big believer in intellectual property, right? That just philosophically, like, I just don't really. I think sometimes there's some problems with it, and so, I don't begrudge anybody. People could take my ideas, and plenty of people have, not just in mace swinging, but in wrestling and stuff. And I have no problem because I do think that a lot of times they make improvements. They've taken an idea that they wouldn't have had. I came up with the idea, but maybe they improve on it. They're better
Right.
in the execution or whatever. So, but one of the things, the last thing that I'm going to do is like I said, I got Mace Yoga coming out. I got Macebell 2.0 coming out. But then and this is something where I do have a lot of kinship with Pelwani Calvani, and that's I'm very much into ritual and meditation and yoga and things of that nature. So one of the things that I'm going to do, and he's doing this as well, and I think it's a great thing. I mean, these are all plans I've had for years, and I told them to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do the same thing." And we're like, and we're really on kind of a same vibe in a lot of ways right now. I think he's a grappler as well. He's a pretty good grappler, from what I
Yeah.
understand. Um, but I'm going to start actually making also a yoga mace, but they're going to be pieces of art. I'm going to actually be sculpting them myself. I kind of figured out a good way that you can sculpt,
Hmm.
but you can also make sure you're getting the correct weight measurements and things of that nature because
Wow.
I
That's
saw
nice.
some of like the kettlebells that had like the monkey heads. I
Yeah.
think on it had that and stuff,
Yeah.
and now they have one that's got like it looks like the god Janus. It has like multiple faces on it or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. The quad mace.
Um, yeah, like I want to, but I have some ideas for some of the art, and so I'm also going to be selling those as art pieces that are functional as
Nice.
well.
Nice. I'm looking forward to
And I'll
that.
also be doing some like magic and ritual work with them, based on whatever people commission.
Nice. I see.
Commission.
Will I actually saw
So
Williams making a lot of gatas actually recently.
yeah,
In
I
Marshall.
think he has a different method I've seen, and this is the thing though, and I please just you can go and I'm probably gonna make another video this year. So I'm gonna when I'm gonna be selling these commission pieces, but in the process, I'm gonna make a video that just shows you how you can do it. You can go to Home Depot, and I know these maces can be expensive. They can be $100 plus shipping's like another $50 or whatever.
Right.
I mean, it could be expensive. There's no reason you shouldn't be swinging a mace if you're interested, because you can go down to Home Depot and you can get the materials for like $50,
Right.
less than, and you get the materials
Sorry, lost.
I use and all that kind of stuff. So those are kind of the plans that I have for this year. If I get around to them, that's another question, another another thing. But I don't know.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and spending an hour with me and having this chat. I think, people are going to benefit tremendously from this. The names that you mentioned as well, those are all people I kind of, know of or know. And it's going to be great to kind of continue to build that community and help people become aware of what's actually going on and the different things that are going on within the mace training world, as well as just the fitness world in general, of all types of different backgrounds, just giving people an opportunity to learn and explore that. So anyway, it looks like we've got a frozen screen here, and we've lost Jake here. Thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it, and stay tuned. Stay tuned for the next episode next week. I'll be posting, and I'll go ahead and follow my live videos so you'll be notified when the live videos go up. Once again, thank you for watching live.